Okay, so now it's time to get into more practical use cases of include. We showed you a few actually very practical ones, but this one is even more practical. And that is actually turning our object items, when we put them in a list, into a card or a featured item. So just really quickly looking at getbootstrap.com, what we're doing here is we're going to actually be implementing a component called card. Okay, so this right here is what we are implementing, and we want it to be very simple where it's actually kind of copying this so we can reuse it anywhere we want to display a product like this. So think of it as like a list display item. Now we already have this here. We have a list here, but we also have maybe a feature detail. But what if I had other views with the need for listing out other things? I want a uniform behavior, and I don't want to have to repeat myself over and over. So inside of this products, we're going to go ahead and make a new folder here, and we'll call it Snippets. And inside of there, let's try that again. New folder, Snippets. And there it is. And then I'm going to just go ahead and make a new file in here, and I'm going to call it card.html. And I'm going to go back in and get Bootstrap. And again, I'm right here, docs 4.0 components card. And just scroll down to this code here. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in. So this is the actual card component. Of course, you can come through here and figure out all these things themselves. So I'm going to bring this card into my list. Now, list.html doesn't extend from base.html. So let's make sure we do, because we want the Bootstrap stuff. So we'll say extends base.html. Well, granted, we don't just want Bootstrap stuff. We want all the things. So let's go ahead and put it in the block content and in block, and we'll tab this in. Okay, so let's take a look at what it looks like right now. Going back, we'll go into products, and there's our list, right? It is better styled than it was, but it's not quite what we want. Instead, what we want is that new snippet for cards. Now, hopefully you remember kind of how to do this, but basically we're going to just say include, and we'll do the path to where the snippet exists. So in our case, the path is products, snippets, and card.html. Now again, this path is exactly the same as doing something like this template name sort of stuff. It's the same path that you'd be using for where that is with our snippet. Okay, so I saved that, and now I have these things called product card. Notice that I have them actually being rendered. They're showing up as these cards. So we can actually change the data that's in here by saying obj, or rather, let's just say instance equals to obj, as in the product instance is equal to the object inside of this list. So we can use this now context inside of our card here, right? And the first thing I could do is I could say if instance.image, I could put a condition in here that's saying, hey, if there's an image, let's put it in there, right? So instance.image.url, that's a quick way to get that. Let's just double check that that's the actual name. So in our product model, this is what the instance would be. There's image, it's an image field. So yeah, what I just did, this part would actually work. And again, we put a conditional statement here to allow us to see that. The next thing I can just say instance.title, right? And then finally, going back again into our models, we have getAbsoluteURL method. We can say down here, instance.getAbsoluteURL. And we'll just say go, or rather view. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the description just yet, but we'll save that. We'll go back into our list, and I'm going to get rid of this portion. Just delete it completely. Okay, we refresh in here, and we've got unknown argument for tag instance equals to obj. That's because we have to type out with instance equal to obj. We refresh, and now we actually have a little bit better looking of a list view. It's not great, and that's because we didn't finish some of the Bootstrap stuff. So if I did div class equals to container, and then div class equals to row. We will talk about this stuff later, so don't worry about it if it's not fully making sense. I'm going to put it in here actually and close off some of those div tags. Save and refresh, and there you go. Look at that. We can now see this stuff. If I click on view, it actually brings me into where those things are. So that's a more advanced use of the include tag. Now again, this is something that's really important because now whenever I want to see that snippet card, I can just implement it just like that. I can actually grab it in and it will always go off of what's here. Again, we're not repeating ourselves here. Instead, we're having a more robust way to display our listed items. So I can also make the image linkable, of course, right? And I can really just improve all sorts of things here. And I know now that everywhere I use this little snippet, it will update as needed. And I want to get in the habit of using these snippets right away, just so I'm using them always, right? That's why I wanted to introduce this so early on. Of course, having the base, including the base.html and stuff like that, like those things are good and important, but they're not nearly as effective as this card thing. It's very similar to using instance.getAbsoluteURL. I would argue it's very similar to that because it's a nice little shortcut to actually displaying your content in some sort of card or, like a list view. Of course, this doesn't mean always just for your products. You could have different sorts of things here, but now that I refresh here, I can actually click on any given item. Oh, we have some space around that. So let's actually get rid of that space around the image tag. And it looks like we might need to actually update how that's working, and that's because that's all coming because of the button. Oh, that's why. Duh. We have a class on that tag. We don't need that. Refresh in there, and there we go. That gets rid of it. Little glitch there from Bootstrap, but now it's working, and we can actually see our products in a little bit better of a light. Let me know if you have any questions on how we do these snippets. Otherwise, let's keep going.